Gloria Welcome to our musical journey. So tonight we invite you to take an adventure along with us to discover beautiful music written by composers that were influenced by the time in which they lived and where they lived. You know, we're a really fun group of singers and we're really inclusive, so we're inviting you to come along with us. And we won't even charge you extra for your bags or, kind of limit the liquids you take. You can just come. So we're all going to go and have a cappuccino in Italy, a hike through the Austrian hills, and then I think we'll even take in a jazz club in New York City. And finally, we're going to be having a cup of tea back at home in Nova Scotia. But tonight we're ready to start with our adventure in Venice. Venice in the 18th century was kind of like the Las Vegas of Europe. But unlike Vegas, what happened in Venice most certainly didn't stay in Venice. It was a city whose style and art and music was taken home by artists and musicians to their own cities throughout Europe. Antonio Vivaldi was an innovator in Baroque music, a composer, a virtuoso violinist, teacher, and in 1703 he was an ordained priest. He was known as the Red Priest. They think for his red hair. His life and genius influenced a lot of notable artists, but he struggled in his life. And at the end of his life, he was a pauper, and he was so poor that even at his funeral, there was no music because he couldn't afford that. So the bells rang for him, and a lot of his music was even lost. And mostly because he had to sell it in order to make a living at the end of his life. Glad that a lot of historians and researchers brought it all back so that we can all enjoy a lot of his works. The song that we're going to perform is from Vivaldi's opera La Fida Ninfa, which is meaning the faithful nymph. I read an interesting and somewhat funny review about this opera in The Guardian by Tim Ashley. He wrote, La Fida Ninfa was flung together in almost indecent haste, and in this instance, in December, for the following month's performance. Dramatically, you could say it creaks a bit. However, the music is so gorgeous and erotic that your qualms evaporate and you surrender to it. It's a perverse, wonky masterpiece, but bliss to listen to. So I hope you enjoy it. Vivaldi's Rise Up with Music.
Yeah.
So Nuremberg is a city in northern Bavaria. It's distinguished by medieval architecture, such as fortifications and stone towers of its old town. At the northern edge, surrounded by red-roofed buildings, stands the Kaiserberg Castle. In the central square, you'll find the gilded fountain with tiers of figures and the Frauenkirche, a 14th century Gothic church. It's here, in this setting, that we find Johann Pachelbel. He was also another influential composer of the Baroque period. He was usually very ornamented and embellished his works. He was an excellent organist, and he is said to be quite unrivaled for his organ playing, credited with helping to institute the tradition of German organ music. He played throughout churches in Germany and Vienna, functional music that they used every week for services. He was highly skilled at discovering new ways to embellish his hymn tunes. So what you're going to hear tonight is there's a hymn-like melody for Now Thank We All Our God, which I think you might even recognize as you hear it. The sopranos, halfway in the piece, have this long, drawn-out hymn melody. The rest of the choir has a whole lot of notes underneath and a whole lot of German, which they don't let me forget. And tonight, this work is going to be performed for choir and strings, but actually it is written for double choir. So you often hear this one with two choirs, or a choir and organ, or possibly a choir and brass. But we thought this would work very well tonight. So, nun danket alle Gods.